Hello, and welcome to another edition of One Bad Veggies Root Beer Review, where in this review we find out if these boots were made for walking and if that's just what they will do. So we're going to be doing Boots Sarsparilla Root Beer, which I've had Sarsparilla Root Beers before. They usually tend to be pretty good. I usually find them to be pretty good. Um, so a little bit about Boots, kind of looking up a little bit about their history and stuff. Boots was started by a gentleman by the name of Boots, actually. I don't know if Boots was his real name. I'm sure it was just a nickname, but Boots was a World War II veteran. When he came back from World War II, he decided to start a soda company. They do a bunch of different flavors and stuff. A lot of interesting sounding flavors too, by the way. They have a cinnamon red hot flavor, a caramel apple soda, a caramel cola. I've never even heard of a caramel cola before. That sounds pretty neat, actually. I'd like to try that. But no, yeah, they do a bunch of different flavors and stuff. And sarsaparilla root beer is one of their favorites, or one of their flavors. Flavors, not favorites. Flavors. Although I'm sure it is one of their favorites too. But no, something interesting. Reading about their sarsaparilla root beer is that they say that they use actual sarsaparilla root in it, which is unique because of weird FDA rules and stuff like that. Sarsaparilla is pretty much frowned upon to be put into food and drinks as it is. But this is a Texas brewery, and I find that Texas breweries usually have some interesting things that they get away with when it comes to root beer. I'll say this too about Texas root beer. So in my experience so far, it seems like a lot of the best root beers I've had are usually from Texas or like the upper Midwest, like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Chicago. Obviously, it has a lot of really good root beers. So yeah, I mean, it's easy to get excited about this one. But let's go ahead for now and just take a look at all the ingredients. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the ingredients, which should be appearing right here. And interesting thing about this one, it says natural flavors instead of natural and artificial flavors, which would be really cool if they're using just natural flavors for the whole drink instead of, mixing in artificial stuff with it. Interesting, always question the use of the word sugar, because you're never sure if that's still high fructose corn syrup or if it's actually pure sugar. Yeah, just taking a look at the bottle real quick to see. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bottle. Why don't we? Just to see if maybe it said anything on it about whether or not it uses pure cane sugar, which actually, looking at the side here, it does. So I think it's safe to assume that it is real sugar. The other thing that I found kind of interesting about it is just the fact that there's so many preservatives in it. Look at that. You have phosphoric acid, you have the potassium sorbate, you have there's like 4 of them. There's more, well, not more, but a lot of preservatives in it, which I guess in the end may be a good thing in this case, because it probably keeps it nice and bubbly. You can actually, looking at the bottle right now, you can already kind of see the bubbles at the top there. So I'm wondering how much of a foam this one's going to have. There's nothing in the ingredients necessarily that looks super special or anything, but again, it being a sarsaparilla, I've always said sarsaparilla, but it's spelled Sarsparilla. I wonder if I've always been saying it wrong or if the R is kind of like silent like that. Anyway, not the time or the place for that. Sarsaparilla root beer. Like I said, I'm always kind of excited to try a sarsaparilla root beer. They usually have a pretty good flavor. So let's go ahead and pop this one open and get ourselves a little bit of the scent. All right, let's go ahead and pop this one open and see how it smells. Like I said, even though most of these are twist tops, my old man hands are so weak now that I can't seem to open the bottles. Let's go ahead and... Oh yeah, there is a definite different sort of scent coming from this. It's got a heavy, rooty flavor. Kind of what I've described as kind of herbally and stuff like that. There's a flavor that's very apparent in a lot of root beers. Man, it smells actually really good. It's very unique, and I really like it. There's a flavor profile that's in a lot of root beers that I don't really talk about a lot called wintergreen, because I don't know if it's just my palate or what it is, but it's almost kind of like a background kind of minty flavor that is in a lot of root beers, usually the more herbally ones like this one, and a lot of people like to point that out. I don't know if it's just that I can't taste it or if it just usually kind of mixes in more, but this is one of those ones where I think that I think I actually kind of sense it in the background there. Maybe it is the sarsaparilla, because the sarsaparilla has its own unique scent to it and everything. This smells pretty good. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the pouring the foam. And there she is, the old trusty mug, back for revenge once again. Let's go ahead and pour this and see what that looks like. You know, that's about what I expected, honestly. That's pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and get ourselves a little taste of that. All right, let's see here. That is super frothy. There's enough for another sip here. Now that is some good foam right there. Just as far as looks and stuff goes wise, it looks incredible. Very picturesque. Like I say, the pour in the foam is almost always, I always look at that as a aesthetic sort of thing. That's a great looking root beer. I mean, what else is here to say? There's still foam left too. I'm looking at it right now. There's still a lot of foam left here. I'm going to transition real quick. Look at that. That's incredible. Fantastic. I did notice it did have the Kilaha. I don't know. Again, I still don't know how to pronounce that. Kilaha extract in it, which, if I remember correctly, is supposed to help with foaming things. Like sometimes they put it in soaps and stuff like that. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. But either way, fantastic. As far as the flavor of it goes, there is a flavor. It's not an overly bitter one. There was a little bit of bitterness to it, and I think that comes from just kind of the chemical kind of like preservative part of the function. But it actually does have a lot of flavor, and the flavor is overwhelmingly rooty. Again, I'm going to use that word again, rooty. I think again that's just the sarsaparilla root that's supposedly inside of this drink. I say supposedly. It says it on the website. I should just trust the website, I guess. But yeah, it's got that good herbally kind of rooty flavor. I know usually I'm the one that's going to sit here and be like, that's not my favorite kind of root beer, and that is true. But sometimes you get a couple of them that kind of win you over just by kind of the unique flavor that it does create. So let's go ahead and just get into the taste test. Before I get into the taste test, I just want to make a point that you're not going crazy. There is like a grid over the pour in foam and the ingredients parts where I'm showing what the beer in the bottle looks like and stuff. That is because I use a grid to try to center the picture when I'm getting ready to record one of these, and I forgot to turn the grid off this time. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the taste test. Here we go. Bottoms up. I mean, it is kind of exactly what I expected in a lot of ways. Now, I remember the last sarsaparilla root beer I had was Hosmer Mountain, which I gave a pretty good score because it was delicious. This one I also really enjoy, but the dilemma that I'm coming up with, and I've had this dilemma with other drinks before, like I've had the dilemma of, in the past, this root beer tastes more like a cola than maybe like a root beer because they're doing weird things with the herbs and stuff like that in it. This one is a similar because it's a sarsaparilla root beer. And with Hosmer Mountain, Hosmer Mountain was a root beer with a sarsaparilla bend to it. And it kind of elevated the root beer to taste a lot better. Whereas with this one, it's almost like it's a sarsaparilla with a root beer bend to it. And the root beer bend to it is actually kind of minor in the end. But it's delicious. By the way, good bite on this one too. I'll say that. It's got a good bite to it. And I think it's going to make me pretty belchy too. I'm going to try not to belch into the microphone. So the dilemma is obviously, do I rate it high because the flavor is good, or do I rate it low because it's not really a great root beer necessarily? Like, how do I put it? If you were going out, root beer has a flavor to it. If you were going out and you were going to a store and you were going to buy a root beer and you got this, you might be disappointed because it doesn't necessarily taste a lot like root beer. It definitely tastes more like a sarsaparilla, which is definitely a unique thing from root beer. Even though sarsaparilla is basically what eventually became root beer, there is definitely a different flavor to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called two different drinks, right? But I don't mind the flavor of sarsaparilla at all. I think sarsaparilla is usually pretty good. I know a lot of people who review root beers who just review sarsaparillas along with root beers because they feel they're similar enough to do so. I don't necessarily agree with that. But they do definitely, I mean, you could tell that they're family. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna think about this one and try to decide what I want to say as far as the flavor goes. Or the score goes. Before I go and I do that though, I want to talk a little bit more about the flavor. Like I said, it's definitely a sarsaparilla that has root beer tendencies to it, right? It's got a little bit. It's sarsaparilla forward, root beer on the side. One thing I really enjoyed about it though is after every drink, there's a good vanilla kind of aftertaste that kind of lingers in between each drink, each sip. I don't know what you want to call it, each drink. That I think was really enjoyable. It kind of hit me, when I was sitting here drinking it. It's just like I'm like, this tastes pretty good, and then all of a sudden it hits you like, oh, that's vanilla. Oh, that tastes good. So, now I'm gonna go ahead and like I said, I'm gonna have to think about this one because I try not to be a hypocrite when it comes to things like this. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about the grade in a minute. So the decision with this one, like I was saying before, the hard part is deciding does this deserve a high grade because it tastes good, or does it deserve a lower grade because it's not a very good root beer. And I think in the cases, a lot of times too, when we get those root beers that kind of have almost like a cola flavor to them instead of a more normal root beer flavor, I think a lot of times too, those ones just don't taste very good either. They're usually like overly herbally, like definitely leaning more on kind of the flavors that I'm not as crazy about. Whereas in this case, sarsaparilla is a flavor that I do enjoy. I do like sarsaparilla. I do like that version of kind of the flavor it adds to a root beer. Now, I think in the case of Hosmer Mountain, because that's really the last one I can think of that did this. That has a sarsaparilla root beer that I've had. I gave that one a B at the time, and I like I said, I think that one has a better mixture of root beer and sarsaparilla, where it's pushes the root beer flavor forward, and the sarsaparilla is a complement to the root beer. I think if I was just going on the flavor itself, I would also give this one a B. Even it's the opposite of the Hosmer Mountain one. It's more sarsaparilla, less root beer. But I think because it isn't going to necessarily fulfill your need for a root beer when you want one, I think I'm gonna bump it down to a C. And But I want you to keep that in mind, right? The only reason I'm bumping it down to a C is because it tastes more like a sarsaparilla than a root beer. I want to grade it higher. I really do. I really want to bump that up to a B in a lot of ways because just because it tastes that good, right? I really enjoyed the flavor of this one. But like I said, because this is a root beer review and not a sarsaparilla review, I feel like on a technicality, which doesn't happen too often, on a technicality, I have to bump it down a little bit to a C. Which, you know, again, like I always say, a C isn't bad. C is a perfectly good drink. I honestly, even sitting here getting ready to finish grading this, I still am kind of itching to give it a B still. But I really do think that if I gave it anything higher than a C, that would be hypocritical. But we'll say it's a soft C. It's a soft C, but it should be a B. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, C. So that's it for this one. You can like and subscribe and comment and not do any of those things. Just enjoy the videos. That's fine. Otherwise, yeah, sorry for the grids over the video. I totally forgot that I had those on, but hopefully it doesn't absolutely ruin the experience for you. Man, that's 2 weeks in a row where I've done something really kind of spacey and not paying attention to what I'm doing. Like I said, the schedule's kind of crazy right now, so I think sometimes when I hop on these root beer reviews, I'm kind of just like, all right, gotta get this done. So anyway, that's it for now, and I hope you had a good time.